Hello, and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Unis. Stick with us for a couple of seconds, and we will introduce you to that gentleman on the left of your screen. There we go.
All right, well, let's get started first with housekeeping.
And we are live, and notifications have gone out.
All right. And we want to give out thanks and a shout out to all of our moderators, Jimmy Fast, Joel Lewicki, Jason Eunice, and Brian Eagle. Today's presentation will be followed by an open Q&A, and you can ask any questions you like about thermal cameras, drones, and hunting for that treasure.
Yeah, whatever comes up in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So a while back, it's been at least a couple of months, we introduced you to the fact that we use drones for a lot of reasons. We use it for both filmmaking and for using it to search for the treasure. And up until this point, search for the treasure has just meant that we are using it to scout, if you will, certain areas. It just makes it easier so that we have an overhead view. And it's been good for us. But we've been talking for a while about the potential for thermal cameras, and the reason that comes up is primarily because I have a sense that one of the things that Fenn or any person who hides a treasure may have underestimated was the potential for evolving technology. And if you look at, I'm going to show you something at the end of the show. It comes in this box. This is a portable thermal imaging. It's actually a combination thermal imaging and visible imaging camera. And if you were to try to buy this back in 2010, it would have cost you thousands of dollars. In some cases, for this size, you'd have to pay $20,000 to $25,000. I just ordered one from Amazon this week for under 200 bucks, and it plugs into my iOS device. So what's happening is, as the technology evolves, it makes it more readily available to the average person. In this case, the average person is the searcher that we're dealing with. So I've invited the gentleman that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. His name is Matt Brewer. I've invited him to join us today after he wrote me, and he shared some imagery with me of the work that he had been doing in terms of drones and thermal imaging cameras. He uses the same technology as this, integrated by Caterpillar tractor, and I'm going to have him show that device to you. So, Matt, could you turn on your microphone, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Very good.
So
good.
Nice to be speaking to you again. First of all, Shelley and I wanted to thank you for volunteering to do this particular show. We know it's not, the normal kind of show that we would do, nor the normal kind of thing that you would do. But I was very grateful when you shared your technology and your imagery with us, and I wanted to make sure the other searchers were in our community were aware of what you're doing. So first of all, let's start with your background. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I actually put in about 20 years into corporate America, but my roots were really in outdoorsy.
You froze up.
Yeah,
do this anymore.
Oh, there it goes. Okay.
I got to the point where I didn't want to work in corporate America anymore, and I decided that I would find something better to do, like fly drones commercially and so forth. And I'm also a searcher, obviously. So I thought about how in the world we could narrow some of this huge search area down even further. And it occurred to me that the properties of the chest itself may lend itself to, working with a thermal camera. It may have some potential there. So that's what I've done. I've purchased a special camera that goes with my drones. I have the large unique drone behind me. That's what you see is the H920. It's got a thermal camera on it. It's called a CGO ET, and it allows you to have two cameras. So as you fly over, it's showing you the 4K border, and then it's also showing you the actual thermal response from the target. And in doing a series of tests, and what I did to do these tests was I got as close to the Fenn treasure that I was able to comfortably afford, and you see that here behind me.
Why don't you bring that box up, because you've shown it to me and I'd like the others to see it.
Yeah, let me grab this stuff off there. So this is the chest. It's not quite half size of the actual Fenn chest, but I thought that since it was, you know, made out of bronze, and it would be a good representative chest to use for this type of testing. So this is, and when you see the images here, this is what you're looking at in the image.
Right. So it is made of bronze. Is that correct?
Actually, I'm sorry. It's made of brass, but
okay. And
very similar composition.
So we all know that the total weight of the chest and the contents are around 42 pounds. One of our theories is that a lot of that metal that's inside the chest, in addition to the chest, is going to retain some of the heat. How did you accommodate the idea that that chest is filled with some additional metal objects?
Well, I looked at the properties of the given metals that would make up not only the chest, but I actually tried to put in, to the best of my ability, a similar weight. I put in some lead in there, and I put a whole bunch of pennies in there, copper pennies, pre-1983 pennies, into the chest as well. So it would help to hold that heat and have a similar thermal kind of conductivity as. Yeah. Same.
And those pennies that are almost pre-1983 are almost pure copper, and bronze is about 90% copper, right? It's
that's
copper
correct.
And zinc.
That is correct.
To make up bronze. So, also you showed me some of the pieces of, and I can't remember the name. It's a gold-looking stone that you incorporated into the chest.
Yes.
Why don't you share that?
It's actually called Mohawkite. It's kind of a rare thing. It's only found up by Lake Michigan, but it's a combination of 4 metals, and obviously, you got a lot of copper in there, but it really does look like a gold nugget.
And I see your drone behind us there. It doesn't look like a DJI. Tell us a little bit about the drone that you're flying.
Right. So I do have DJI drones as well. Just like you, I have the Mavic Air. Love that drone. Yeah. But this is the unique H920. That means it has 920 millimeters between the engine, so it's a fairly large, for scale. That's my hand on it. So yeah. It is a fairly large drone. And what you see down below, what it's carrying here, is the CGO ET camera. So there's an adapter, and then the camera itself. So that's a pretty pricey camera, but it does a good job. It has, like I said before, just like the Flir, it has 2 cameras built in, one 4K camera, low light camera, and then the thermal image, so that they can overlay those images on top of each other.
So just to let folks know the kind of investment that you've made in this technology, how much how much does the combination of that particular drone and that particular camera cost?
So the camera itself was about $1,800. The adapter another $250, and the drone itself was $4,000. So, that's $7,000 roughly in there.
Well, that's a pretty significant investment. But also, you mentioned that you and your brother-in-law are thinking about starting a business. Why don't you tell folks about that possibility?
Right. So I came up with an idea where, for people that, for whatever reason, can't get out and do adventure type things, like the Fenn search being one of them, Lost Dutchman maybe another one. We decided we'd come up with this way of bringing that to the people out there. So what we're going to call it is myvicariousAdventures.com, and then that'll allow you to see exactly what we're doing. We're going to bring the handheld DJI Osmo with us, and we're going to film it from the drone perspective, why we're there, what we're doing, what the what the clues in that particular area, how we translated those, or came up with going to that particular area, an overview shot, and those types of things, and just let people vicariously go through these adventures with us.
So I'm going to transition over to a bigger screen because people are suggesting that we need to see more of you. So just give me a second. We're going to transition over the full screen. That's a little bit better there. So the other thing is, why don't you, you've told me about your search experiences, and it sounds like you've been out several times. Why don't you tell the viewers about your experience with the Forrest Fenn search, exclusive of the technology that you're using?
So I've been in the field upwards of 25 times, had actual boots on the ground, most of which has been in Southern Colorado, Northern New Mexico, focused in on those areas. Done a fair amount of boots on the ground, and it's been an adventure for sure. I've had a few conversations with Forrest on the phone, and I've had a few email correspondence, but albeit fairly short.
Mm-hmm. And where, in terms of your search strategies, where are you focused on now? If you don't mind,
I'm
just
still
in terms of the state.
in northern New Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, somewhere right, fairly close to the border of those two states.
And when do you expect your next Forrest Fenn travel versus daughter cheerleader travel to be?
Well, since my daughter just finished up her cheerleading season for the year, they had their Super Bowl in Orlando just recently. So probably in the next couple weeks,
mm-hmm.
we're going to go back out to the area we were last time. And
mm-hmm.
There's so many places in this particular area that we could probably spend 5 or 6 boots on the ground
mm-hmm.
for a mile stretch.
Yeah.
So
how does your family feel about your treasure hunting avocation?
Well, my wife is fantastic about it, and she's mostly concerned that I'm having a good time and doing what I love to do. I put in my time in corporate America, make good investments, so I have these options now. And she's just been incredibly supportive, in the same way with my daughter. Actually, my oldest daughter is trying to push me along into the YouTube world. She's telling me I really need my own YouTube channel and all these things. So,
we believe every searcher should have their own YouTube channel.
Yes, and she's become quite the little celebrity on YouTube herself. So hopefully that's the right answer for us.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to expand the community. By the way, I do want to mention to our viewers that this morning I watched a video, and I'm sorry I don't remember the producer. He's not one of the traditional search community. He looks like a filmmaker, young filmmaker, and he produced a 47-minute long video on their search, a search, a recon that he and his friends went on, and they hit both New Mexico and Yellowstone over an X number of weeks period. I don't remember it, but if one of you does remember, please put it in the chat, because I'm going to start recommending that video to searchers who have not yet been boots on the ground, because it is, I guess, for all intents and purposes, the best example of what you're going to experience the first time you've been boots on the ground, whether you're in New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, or Montana. They, of course, return home to Orlando, by the way, Florida, without the treasure, but their experiences, I believe, were very much the experiences we had on our first boots to the ground, and to some extent still sometimes have every time we search a new area. So I strongly recommend that you watch that. And like I said, if somebody in the chat room remembers or can find that or put a link to it. Although I don't normally allow links, this one, please put it in the chat below, and we can share it with the other viewers, okay? And the other thing I was going to ask our viewers to do was, remember when you come into the room, not only to introduce yourself by name, but tell us where you're from. We love hearing where people are from in our chat room. So I'm going to switch over to, did I stop you from saying something?
Well, I kind of had a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I'd like to hear more about your daughter's YouTube channel, because my daughter has a YouTube channel, so if we could hook them up.
Okay, I will certainly pass all that on to you. I know she just started up another channel, and she's got a clothing line and so forth. So
wow.
I can certainly pass that on to you. I don't have it handy right now. She moves so fast through this stuff that I have a hard time keeping up with it, to tell you the truth. So I will definitely get that to you.
Great. That would be great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition over to the images that you sent me, and what the viewers are going to see, and you'll be able to see once the delay is caught up. I'm going to start with JPEG 4, the image 4, and then we'll go right through them, 4, 6, 10, 11, and Flir. And I'll tell you when they're up, and you can start explaining what we're seeing in each of the images, okay? So here we go with JPEG 4.
All right. So what you're seeing here in JPEG 4 is when the camera views the treasure chest at an acute angle. The treasure chest shows up as a significantly warmer, that's the red color in the middle. It shows up significantly warmer than its surroundings. Now, just looking through that and trying to think of why that would make sense, right? You'd think that it would be warmer, it's attracting more heat and so forth. But we'll find out here in a second, when you change the angle in which you view this treasure chest, what you're going to find is it changes. So both images 4 and 6 that Toby can bring up here.
All right, so here's 6.
It's showing you the same angle. So basically at eye level, if you will, if I'm viewing, my camera is coming up, let's say it's on the side of a hill, and I'm viewing directly at it. What it's going to show is it's going to show up warmer than the surrounding area. Now, this has some ramifications when you set up part of a thermal camera. Is you really want to set the temperature range that you want the camera to grade. And it's not, I don't think it's going to be a good idea in this particular case, because you don't know what angle you're going to come across the chest. You don't want to miss the chest because you didn't have, you filtered out the range of temperatures that the chest would show up at. So if we take this a little bit further, let's talk about the images. If you could, Toby, bring up unique 10 and 11.
Hang on, I do have a question about this. So you mentioned that one of the differences in terms of thermal imagery, how the camera reads it, is the angle on which you're reading it from. Is that correct?
Right, right.
And then secondly, when you took this image, was the box filled with the contents that you described earlier, or was it empty? Okay.
No, it was filled with the contents, and I tried it both with the contents and without the content. It didn't seem to matter.
And then the third thing is, how long had that box been sitting out there before you actually shot the image?
So I let it set out there 3 or 4 hours. So it's probably 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I took that picture. So you can see a little bit of a shadow off of it. So it's not high noon.
Right. And can you estimate the difference in temperature between what we see in the thermal image between the box and the surrounding ground? Because it looks like it's concrete, right?
Yes. There's a picture. So there's not a way to do that without setting that temperature range. Right. So, however, that being said, is the Flir images that I put in there have a X in the middle of them, and it gives you the exact temperature that it's reading out. So you can kind of take a look at that. That'll give you what it was in the middle of the image.
Let's go on to the next image. This one is, I want to make sure I'm in the right place. Hold on. Just give me a second because I want to make sure. Okay, so that's 10. We're at 10 now.
Okay, so both 10 and 11 are showing you what the chest looks like when, from the thermal perspective, when you're above it, pointing almost directly down. So now, instead of having the chest show up warmer than its surroundings, for this, what I found was if I'm directly above it shooting down, it's going to show up significantly colder than its surroundings. I believe it's because once you get it lined up like that, you're getting the reflection back from the IR reflection. It's indirect when I'm horizontal with the treasure, so it's not showing up colder. And I found this with all shiny metals. It's kind of the same scenario. So when I fly the drone directly above it, point down, now it shows the treasure as being colder, the treasure chest being colder than the surrounding areas. And it doesn't matter whether or not it's filled with the pennies.
Or not.
All right.
So, the temperature of the box hasn't actually changed. It's just the ratio between the box and the surrounding area. Right.
So something in the technology, and this was consistent from the Flir and the unique camera. When you align yourself in such a way that that light signature is coming straight back to you, like from above,
right,
it changes the way it views that temperature. Sometimes it shows that temperature at like -60 degrees below zero.
Yeah.
So it's fairly drastic. So
let's go on to Jpeg 11.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very similar to 10. What's different about 11?
It's just another proof of what I'm showing. I think in 10 it was empty, and 11 I put contents in and let it warm up for an hour or so. Mm-hmm. But it shows the same type of scenario that when I get up above it, it changes and it looks like it's colder than its surrounding. Now that plays into you really want, when you're doing thermal work, you really want to set the temperature range so whatever thing that you're looking for really pops out in the image. So, but we're not able to I don't think we're able to do that with this particular technology because, like I said, I don't know what angle I'm going to come across the treasure, nor do I know whether or not it's going to be in direct sunlight.
Right. So theoretically speaking, can we take the theory to the next step and say we can expect, regardless of what time of the day it is, in a 24-hour clock, can we expect that the treasure chest is going to be different in temperature from its surrounding area?
I think so. I think if nothing else, the reflected signature coming back cold is going to be telltale regardless of what time of day it is, because that's the infrared light bouncing back and giving that weird signal. That weird signal may be in fact what we really need to focus on to find it, because with the heat signature on the warm side of that, when I'm looking at it, there's, especially when I don't range the temperature, then there's all kinds of things that show up fairly hot. Anything that's directly in sunlight, it makes it very hard to pick apart and find anything specific from the hot side of things.
Right. If these distances, or the distances in these images, all seem within reason to me, I'm guessing under 30 feet.
Correct.
Right.
About the average was about 15 to 20 feet.
Right.
Right.
So let's say under different circumstances, I'm out of the woods. Fenn often mentions that people have been within 200 feet of the treasure. What are the chances that if I were to point, and it would have to be more than hidden under a rock, right? But let's say that this box was relatively out in the open where it had either absorbed heat faster than the surrounding area or released it faster than the surrounding area. Could I, from 200 feet, see any part of that signature?
I think you could. I think you would see the reflection back, certainly, of the IR camera. So, but I think that would be about the limit of the technology, especially the technology that I have. You know, Flir makes big dollar cameras,
right?
$15,000-$20,000 cameras. They may have a longer, almost certainly have a lot longer range and resolution to be able to pick up that. I've seen handheld units go fairly far when the temperature differences were drastic, like for example a search and rescue type of situation where you're looking for a warm body and you know it's 30 degrees all around them. It makes it very obvious and they can see that from a long distance away. But I'm thinking that with what I'm seeing, even with the thermal cameras being in their infancy on drones anyway, is I think the best potential is picking out that cold signature, that blue, and pointing the camera directly down and flying as close as possible to the ground to try to pick up that reflected signature of cold.
So I've put up the last image, the Flir Hot Image. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Flir does a nice job of combining the two images, so you can actually see the outline of the chest, albeit sometimes it skews it a tad from the actual image. So it gives you an idea of what it looks like in real time, whether I'm using a Flir or the Unique. It's just when I take a picture with the Unique, it separates it into two images, one way lower resolution image that is the thermal, and then the 4K image.
Do me a favor.
Flir overlays them.
Do me a favor and show us your cat phone.
Yeah.
And explain to folks what's on there.
You want to see one of the images where?
No. I just want them to see your phone.
Oh, okay.
And so, explain it to us.
Hopefully you can see that.
Yeah.
So there's actually two cameras in here. So the Flir is built into this Cat S60 phone. This is just a thing to mount it on my dash. It's just a magnet there. But so you got a regular 1080p camera, actually here, and then you have the Flir camera on top. And this overlays those two images, and that's what you're seeing on your screen for the Flir. Makes it fairly handy. And you can actually roll back and forth, like I was showing you earlier, Toby. You can roll back and forth on the image and just go from thermal to full 4K.
Yeah. Hang on a second. I've got to get my my cell phone. Just give me 1 sec.
Sure.
Hang on.
Right back.
There we go.
And the reason I want to do that is that camera, combination cell phone and camera that Matt just showed you is around a $700 to $800 investment. Is that about right?
That's correct.
It's made by Caterpillar, and Caterpillar Tractor Cat entered into a joint technology agreement with Flir to combine that. But I wanted to show you this. This is a Flir camera very similar to the one that Matt has on his phone. And as you can see, it has the lightning adapter so that it ends up plugging into your... I don't have the software installed. So it plugs right into your cell phone. And like other Flir cameras, this is called the Flir One, runs around $200. But it also has the two lenses, so you're collecting two spectrums of light. One is the visible light, and the other is the thermal or infrared light, and it combines it into a single image. There is another camera on the market that sells for about the same price. It's made by a company called Seek, and it's a single image camera. All it shows you is the thermal imagery. The Flir shows you both images. And our plans for this coming week is we're heading up into the mountains. We're going to do a bit of a recon, and we're going to be using this to test. I ordered a bronze chest, a small bronze chest from an eBay seller that we're going to take with us, and we're going to run similar tests and come back with some additional results for you. It may not be a vlog, it might be a separate show, but we just wanted to see how this, I've got it backwards actually, I'd have to look at it like that. There we go. So that's how it would look on your cell phone. Well, no, that's upside down. All right, so that's how it would look on your cell phone. And I haven't installed the software. There's an app that you have to download with it. But that gives me that thermal plus visible light combination that should help us. So last question for you before we go to chat, Matt. Now that you've kind of conducted this research, I know it hasn't been extensive, but in your research opinion, given a choice between using IR as technology for the search from the ground level or from the aerial level with a drone, which do you think is going to be more productive for the average searcher?
Well, for the average searcher, if we're throwing money out of the equation, I would say definitely go with the aerial. You can always see more, and you can always get a better viewpoint from up above. And a lot of times there's things that are exposed from up above that you would have never seen at ground level. So I think just in general, it would help with the search being able to, even if you didn't have a thermal camera, to be able to get up above eye level and to see maybe if there's a crevice, something of that nature, or a ledge or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. But definitely for the search, I think having the aerial capabilities would definitely help.
Oh, good. Well, good. And you do think, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, well, how do you feel about the potential for thermal imaging of any kind in supporting you in your search?
I plan on where it's possible to use this technology. I plan on using it in the search process, and hopefully what it'll end up doing is allowing me to cover much more ground quickly. Many times I look over and I see something, and of course everything looks like the blaze when you're out searching. So you think, wow, that's clear across that canyon. Maybe it would be nice if I could just take a drone, shoot it over there, and figure out what that is without walking and spending an hour trying to get there. Something of that nature.
So you've probably invested as much time in the technology as I have. Where do you think we're going in terms of the utilization of technology to help in the search beyond thermal imaging cameras, etc.?
I think what would be even more helpful once the price of the technology comes down, and actually Doug Preston talks a lot about this, and I don't know if you've picked up his latest book, but he talks about the LiDAR technology in the something about the monkey god. He's got a new bestseller book where they actually use LiDAR technology to discover, a lost city in South America, and they use this LiDAR technology. Now, back when they did this just a few years ago, actually, they had to have a Cessna and a full setup with $1 million LiDAR that only had pulses of, I forget, 250 or 300,000 pulses per second. Now, the technology is still pretty expensive on drones, and you have to have a fairly beefy drone like the one behind me in order to fly LiDAR. But that technology could be the key to finding this treasure, because anywhere there's a hole in the canopy, even in the densest jungles, if you can lie on your back and look up through the canopy and find any light, that you know, when you're pulsing at 750,000 pulses a second, one of those laser beams is going to get through that hole in the canopy. And what you can do with that technology is you can tell it, I want you to take out all of the returns that are vegetation returns. It can somehow it's able to tell a difference between the reflections back from vegetation versus the ground, for example. And so when this thing flies over the densest jungle that you can imagine, and then it tells it, they tell it in software from the point cloud, take out all the returns from vegetation, what you end up with is very clear structures, even down to the level that we're talking about with the chest. So I think as LiDAR comes down in price, it may be just what we need to find the chest.
And, you know, one of the things I've always been curious about is whether or not Fenn had considered the potential for the evolution of this technology. What is your position on the matter?
You know, he said at one point that he didn't think that Google Maps went down far enough. Well, that's today, and I think he was looking at it from that perspective of what's available today. But I think that as technology evolves, we get better and better resolution. Who knows what the, you know, what we're going to come up with next year as far as the abilities with satellite data and so forth, and access to said data. There's even some of it out there already that
if you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, if you're willing to pay for it and you have the right software to render those data. But I think he may not have been completely aware at how fast this technology was, or maybe he doesn't care. If it's under an overhang, you know, like a Mesa Verde type of situation, then LiDAR could still, if I'm at the right angle, it could still find that chest in that regard. A lot of people don't understand how powerful LiDAR is and its ability to penetrate through vegetation, like what I've explained before. Yeah, I encourage you to read that Douglas Preston book, well, because it's really eye-opening.
If you had told me in 2010 that I could buy thermal imaging technology, combined thermal plus visible imaging technology that would fit on my cell phone for $200, I would have told you were crazy. If you had told me that I could buy a thermal imaging camera with a downlink and a DVR and mount that on a drone as small as a Mavic Air, and that it would cost $2,500, which sounds like a lot of money, but if you compare that to where we were, say, just 8 years ago, 2010, first of all, those systems didn't exist. There was no such thing. You had to fly military class drones in order just to carry the weight of the technology, and it was not tens of thousands of dollars, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in just 8 short years, we've reduced it to the size that it can be carried on a small drone, and to the cost that, with a little bit of saving and maybe some super chat, that anyone can actually afford. Anyone can afford. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we're often frustrated by regulations and weather, to where probably 50% of the time that we take the drone with us, we're unable to fly, like I said, either due to weather or regulations. What do you feel is your percentage, and how do you feel about that?
Well, it's certainly, well, what I'm hearing right now is that they're looking at changing a good portion of the regulations. I think they're going to settle on some number under 400, because you're right. Right now, anywhere within, you know, a 5-mile radius of pretty much any airspace, you're restricted, or you got to call the tower and let them know that you're going to be doing this. It becomes quite a challenge. And then of course you have regulations in the parks and so forth that where you'd either have to get an exception to fly in that area, and who knows what's involved with that. I think if you're under the impression that this is on BLM land, the treasure is on BLM land, then you're pretty good to go with your drone for the most part. I mean, check your local laws and so forth, but you're pretty good to go, and as long as you're outside of a big airport, you're good to go in that way.
Yeah, we've flown on BLM land. We've flown without problems on Forest Service land. Again, depending on the weather, we don't fly the drone in bad weather. So, where do you plan to go from here in terms of the use of technology, your search, and your business?
Well, I'm planning on trying to hone this technology to see if there's any tweaks that we can use to really make it stand out if something meets the criteria that we're looking for. I'm looking at the different, in fishing line terms, it's called refractivity, but I'm not sure what it is here and with this particular technology. But I'm looking at trying to understand how and how those images are going to come back to an IR camera, and maybe being able to fine tune those further. Looking forward to possibly getting some LiDAR technology in the coming years, if not renting that as it comes down. Yeah, it's down to about $35,000 or so. You can get a unit if you already have a drone that's capable of carrying it, and there's only a few that really are. You need a hexacopter and octocopter to carry them, and all kinds of insurance, of course. It's fairly pricey, but as that cost comes down, I'm going to be an early adopter of the LiDAR technology, and I'm going to use it where I can to see if we can't narrow down this and find the best.
Well, make sure that your next visit to New Mexico, you let us know, and maybe we can find a middle point between Albuquerque and where you are, so we can get together for some coffee and we can share drone stories.
Absolutely. Sounds like a good time.
All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch this over. Brian, please stay on because I'm going to ask. Matt. Please stay on because we're going to be ask the chat room to start asking questions, and if they have any questions for you, we want to be able to let you know that give you a chance to answer them. Okay. So I've got to switch over screens. We're going to remain on the screen that we're on right now for our chat room, but then we've got to open this up and let Shelly see stuff.
Oh, look, we have Super Chat already.
Wow. Okay, so there you are at the top.
Okay. Can you want to click on that?
You want to do Super Chat first?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, Denise Bagley. Hello. And
Hi,
thank
Denise.
you for the Super Chat. If you have a question, we'll get to it just shortly.
Thank you. And there was another one, right?
There was a blue one, I think.
Let me see. You know what?
Yes,
oh, there it
Dr.
is.
Brown, $2.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. That's very kind
you.
of you. Thank you very much. All right, so let's scroll down our fan base here.
All right, and we're going to say hello to all our friends out there. Illinois Ghost, Journeyman, Missouri 80 degrees. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Cindy
were through
Guess.
Hi, Cindy.
Yeah, hot and humid. And Jason's here. Hello, Jason. Dave Erickson. Oh, well, I just mentioned Jason. Do you want to show them what we have from Jason?
Okay, so Jason, thank you for these gifts. Jason gave me a bunch of I can probably better, several of his items that he produces, and these are Christmas tree ornaments. And he gave me a bunch of them to give away. So I think at the end of today's show, we're going to have a short trivia contest. And if you can answer the trivia contest, I'll ask you to send me an email with your shipping address, and I'll send you these. This isn't the only one that we have. We'll do this. We can do this pretty much for every show for the next couple of months, thanks to Jason. And then we have another gift on Thursday with a book club that my daughter Sean gave us to give away. So we'll do that at the end of the show today.
Yeah,
all right?
So hang in with us. Dave.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. Dave Erickson, Jeremy Milstead, JL, Hot Rod in the house. Hot Rod Nap.
Hot Rod Mav in the house.
Mav, okay.
Okay.
All right. B. Cross is here.
Bill.
Julie Smith, David Dow from San Francisco, Paul Wood from Rio Rancho.
Oh, you remembered.
Yeah. Why Must I Go is here. Lori James is here. Illinois Ghost, we already said hello. Let's see. Man in the Barn, hello. And Denise Bagley. Odious Soul is here.
Oh, Odious Soul. She has a new Odious Soul. Well, that's probably your YouTube channel. She has a new Fenn-related YouTube channel. She's put out several videos in the past couple of days, so make sure you go by her YouTube channel and listen to her stories about her recent, and I guess her fiancé now. She and her fiancé had a recent adventure traveling all the way from Maryland to Yellowstone. So make sure you go and see her videos about that. So thanks for joining us today, Odious Soul.
Gage Cockerham. Sean N.M. is here from the flip side.
And a couple of our panel members. Why Must I Go? Sean N.M.
Rob G. Deborah Jensen from New Orleans. Jeep Girl Jody from Colorado.
Hi, Jeep Girl Jody. I got your message. Thank you. Great pictures, by the way.
And let's see. Actually, I think you forgot to say how to do Super Chat. So if you guys are interested in providing Super Chat.
Oh, did I?
I don't know, because I didn't do that. So I'm like, wait a minute. There is a little grayed out $ at the bottom of your screen. If you're looking at the chat, and you can just click on that. It will take you through the steps to donate to Super Chat, and that will give you a box with a color like you see that some of our other members have provided, and your question will pop up to the top. So if you're interested in doing that Super Chat, that's how you do it. And
we strongly recommend that if you're going to use Super Chat, that you ask a question that one of us can answer. And by the way, I want you to remember that Matt is in the room, and if you have any questions for Matt, please feel free to ask.
And Jason does have a question for Matt. Do you have to have a long, stable exposure to get an accurate thermal image?
That's for you, Matt.
Do I have to have a long, stable exposure?
Yeah, do you have to have a long, stable exposure to get an accurate thermal image?
No, it's pretty quick. There's a tad bit of lag where it readjusts. For example, it's trying to make the colors relative to each other, so the different degrees of warm or cold. So every 3 or 4 seconds, what you'll see is it's recalibrating based on what's on the screen at that time, what's in its field of view. So now this area is the hottest, so I got to make it the darkest color red, and then in this area is the coldest now, so I'm going to make it the darkest blue that I can. So there's a little bit of lag when that happens.
But the actual exposure, so if we refer to a visible light image, it has an exposure of 1/60th of a second. What is the average exposure for, say, the thermal images that you showed us today?
Yeah, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but what I can do is I can kind of give you an idea what it actually looks like, and you can kind of see my image. I don't know if can you see that?
Hang on a second. I've got to switch over. Just give me a. Okay. Oh, there we are. Yeah.
Okay, so you can see it's pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, it's moving as fast as you are, basically.
Yeah. So it's adjusting the color based upon what's the warmest in the picture, so forth.
Interesting.
And it happens in near real time. So
okay. All right.
I don't think there's any significant lag that way.
Got it. Let me go back. Jason Michael, does that answer your question? And then let's see. Another question from Jason for Matt. What sort of depth can you thermally, quote, see, unquote, to?
How far away, I think, is the question.
No, it's more. I think he's asking about depth. Can you? I don't think you can see depth, right? You can't see into the ground with a thermal imaging camera.
Very limited amount. I think that in a couple occasions where I've put coins into the ground and let them get warm, if they're just under the surface, they could be under maybe an inch of dirt. If I have enough pennies, for example, that that copper has attracted enough heat, then you can see into the ground a bit, because that the top of the ground around those pennies, or directly above that penny, is warmer than the surrounding area, so it does show up that way.
So at shallower depths, is there a ratio between mass and depth?
I would say so. I would say, well, and I think what's more important is the thermal conductivity of the metal in the ground. So the more metal that you have in the ground, the more obvious it's going to be, naturally. But if you have something like copper or aluminum, I think it's really going to be a lot more telltale to find those things. Now, I've seen several shows where they've used this technology with really high-end cameras, and they can see fairly far down into the ground. I believe one of the Discovery Channel shows, they were doing something looking for Lassiter's gold, and they were able to see like an old gun that was in the ground. It was several inches down, and it was throwing off enough of a heat signature that they were able to mark it with the drone and then come back and dig it up. So using
that's Why Must I Go has a similar question. Why Must I Go is one of our guests last week on our panel. Well, not one of, was our guest last week on a panel, and he's asking, what altitude above the ground do you have to fly to get any accuracy?
That's a good question, and one that I'm still testing to understand fully. Where is that sweet spot? How far exactly do I have to be above the target to get an accurate reading? Keep in mind here that we're not what is particularly accurate isn't, I don't think, the most important part, because it's relative. I want to see what's warmer than the surrounding area. So the accuracy may not be even that important, especially when you consider the reflected light that I'm talking about from bouncing it directly back to the camera. I think that may end up being much more important in that regard.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. No, that does make a real good sense. So we're just scrolling down through the Q&A now. I should mention that Shelley and I have a meeting at 3 o'clock, so we're probably going to finish up around 2:15 or so.
Okay.
To get to our meeting. So we'll get through as many of these as we can.
Sure.
Journeyman, there's Amy Smith from Mississippi.
Where it's hot and humid.
Hot and humid.
Hunter Hutchinson.
Hunter Hutchinson, to the best of our knowledge, we can only answer it from the perspective that we have, and that is no one has announced that it hasn't been found yet.
Has been.
Has been found yet. So
We just announced
we
it's
all
not.
announced that it hasn't been found. Let's see.
Rick Plank is here.
Hey, Rick Plank. Doc Brown, did we say hi, Doc Brown?
Dr. Brown, we did, because he gave us $2 to say
okay.
hello.
All right.
Joe Sheeran.
Man of the Barn, you are the man. Another one from Jason Eunice, who's a technical geek like the rest of his family. AGK for Matt. In the example images, what is the difference in temperature between the box and the background?
There's only a small degree. Now on the warm, are you talking the warm or the cold images? The cold image is showing, when it shows that deep color of blue, that's showing way different temperature rating. Like I said, sometimes that even shows up when you point a FLIR directly at it with the crosshairs, will give you the temperature reading in the middle of the object. It'll show sometimes negative 30 degrees. So it's a huge temperature range that way. When you're pointed straight at it horizontally, then the differences with the warm, on the warm side, are significantly less. There's a lot of things that show up fairly warm. It makes it much harder to pick apart just a few degree of temperature difference between the surrounding ground and the chest. Now, the accuracy is supposed to be plus or minus 1 degree Celsius.
Oh, wow.
So that's what the camera says. Now, like I said, I'm still researching to figure out where that sweet spot is, and naturally, I think the further you get away from the target, except in the case of the cold that I was talking about,
Yeah.
the further away you get from the target, the less the accuracy is, and you can confirm that with a cheap handheld, laser
Pointer, laser temperature gauge.
Yeah.
So
it starts going down pretty fast.
Man in the Bar has a question. AGK Jpeg 10. What would the heat signature look like if, say, a 2-inch flat rock was on over the top? I would guess that the heat signature that you're going to get from a drone is going to be the heat signature of the 2-inch thick rock. I don't think it's going to penetrate that. But if you were to do it from the side, and assuming what I'm assuming is that the chest that you describe, or the situation that you describe, Man in the Barn, is that the chest is on a rock, and then on top of it is another rock. If you were doing it from a drone, the heat signature would be that of the rock. If you were to do it from the side, then you would see a heat signature that is different for the box, that is different from the rock on top of it, assuming that the box was out of the ground, above the ground.
Right. And how exposed that chest is to the sun throughout the course of the day is also going to make a difference as well.
Well, if effectively it's in the shade, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's effectively in the shade, the heat signature will be different, if cooler but yet different than the surrounding ground that is in the sunlight, right?
Right.
So what you're looking for, you're not necessarily looking for a hot signature, you're looking for a temperature difference.
Right. A relative difference to the surroundings, and then hopefully it's a rectangular shape that you can make out, and that's the key thing that I'm looking for, is that relative temperature difference. Whether it's warmer or colder, I don't think it matters. I think it'll be easier to see when you're directly above it if it's not covered up or there's not an overhang above the target.
So from our friend Illinois Ghost, Rick McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
AGK, can you ask how well the signal picks up during movement of the drone?
It's just as good on the drone as it was with the handheld that I was just doing. It picks up the signature very well.
So it seems to me,
fast.
Rick, what I've noticed about these cameras is that while your normal video camera is refreshing at a rate of either 60 frames or 30 frames a second, which is not visible to the naked eye, you can't tell the difference. As a matter of fact, the industry standard for films is 24 frames a second. And that's the refresh rate for film, and you can actually see the difference. That's why people still shoot at that 24 frames a second rate. But once you're at 30, and especially at 60s, you can't see the difference. As I look at the imagery produced by these FLIR cameras, their frame rate is slower. It's in the range of 10 to 15 frames a second, and it makes sense because they're processing so much data. They're not processing just a visible image, which visible images cameras are optimized for. They're producing something complete. They're converting the temperature into imagery, and so I've noticed that the frame rate is a little bit slower. Not significantly slower. It's not 1 second. It's more. It seems like 10 to 15 frames a second.
Yeah, I'd agree. Somewhere in that range.
Let's see. Journeyman from Journeyman says, AGK, did he cover the chest with different materials to see how much insulation it takes to camouflage the heat signature of the chest? I think that's a question for you, Matt. Did you try?
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
That's one of the things that I intend on doing.
Yeah, I mean, this is Journeyman. This is the first step in his research, and that's why I decided to have him on at this point. I'm sure we'll have him on later in his research cycle so he can tell us how much progress he's made.
And Brian Popelman says, I have a Flir 1 that attaches to my iPhone. It couldn't thermally see a deer at 200 feet away.
Interesting. I think one of the things that I've learned about both the Flir and the Seek is that what you see is very dependent on how accurately you calibrate it for temperature differences. I think that's the key to any of these cameras. So,
Right.
Let's see. I'm going to scroll down here. Oh gosh, I just lost where we were.
We were at the blue. There we go, between the blue and the yellow.
Just give us a second while we scroll through these guys. From JL, go ahead.
Does Matt have any experience processing LiDAR data?
Actually, I've done some work processing point clouds for photogrammetry and the like, in the same technology that you'd use. I used open freeware on Linux to do it, but the same technology, the same processes you'd use there are what you'd use in LiDAR. So it's getting to the point cloud and making sense of the point cloud and then rendering a 3D model, for example. It's very software intensive, but it's pretty profound when you're done to be able to revolve things around and look at things from a different angle. It's pretty neat technology. So yes, that technology is already out there. LiDAR, as it gets cheaper, then we'll marry up that technology for LiDAR. But the base of that technology is no different from good photogrammetry now.
Right. Okay, so thank you for that. We have a couple more questions that we are going to answer, but let's do our
Trivia question.
So here it is. Here's the trivia question. On November 2nd of 2013, I recorded a Forrest Fenn video at Moby Dickens Bookshop in Taos, New Mexico. And if you know the correct answer to this question, type it as quick as you can, because the first one that gets this question correctly wins this. And when I tell you who that person is, then all they need to do is send me an email at gypsykiss@gmail.com with their shipping address, and I'll ship it to you. Are you ready?
But not Jason. Jason can't participate.
Jason can't.
He has enough of these already.
Okay. So
and apparently I can't either.
No, you're a guest. You're on screen, so we got to maintain that arm's length relationship. So here's the question. That's the situation. The question is, what are the first names of the gentleman and lady that ran and owned Moby Dickens Bookshop? Go ahead and answer that. First person to answer it correctly wins this, and we will ship it to them priority mail.
Very cool.
Okay.
How much does Jason normally charge for these?
I think he charges $12 per ornament.
Nice.
But you don't have to make it if you don't have a Christmas tree. You can hang it on your walls.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a beautiful piece. Okay, so read that Illinois Ghost.
Illinois Ghost says, how much of a battery drain is it using 2 cameras on a drone? I normally have 20 minutes of flight time.
Rick, SUAS ran a test using a Mavic Air. Their camera is completely integrated and separate from the drone camera itself. And once they mounted it on the camera, so their normal flight time, Mavic Airs, I don't know how much you know about the Mavic, but the Air, but it gets significantly less flight time than either the Mavic Pro or any of the Phantoms. So average flight time for the Mavic Air without a camera, 17 minutes. SUAS tested it with the camera, the DVR, the battery completely configured, and they got 13 minutes. So they lost 4 minutes worth of flight time on it. So
Now from this perspective here, I'm not running 2 separate cameras, so it doesn't affect the flight time at all. Now this is actually designed to carry a Lumix GH4 camera.
Yeah, very nice.
So this smaller one with the adapter, if you can see that, it actually has 2 cameras built into one camera housing. So this particular drone, I can fly for close to 40 minutes because it has 3 batteries in the back with this super small camera here. And it's got the 4K camera, low light camera on one side here, and then it's got the thermal camera here.
And does it produce 2 separate transmission signals to 2 separate monitors?
No. You can select between the 2. You can overlay, et cetera,
Right.
just like you can with the Flir. The only difference between this and the Flir is when you take a photo from the drone, it makes 2 pictures. It doesn't automatically overlay the 2 pictures. The Flir does, which does a nice job of that. But it takes 2 pictures. That's why when we saw the comparison 2 pictures for this example, that's what you were seeing. You were seeing one drastically lower resolution picture that was taken at the same time as the secondary camera took its picture side by side.
Steve Gahagan, hello from Nebraska.
Journeyman, no, not Journeyman, Fossilman123 says, I'm starting my channel soon.
Yay, let us know when you do so we can promote it for you.
Yeah.
Woohoo, loves free stuff, Odious Soul. Let's see if we got an answer to our question yet. That's further down. Denise Bakley, AGK, I wasn't able to write a note with Super Chat. Just loving your shows and showing my support. Caveat, like last time I had my solve before I started watching your show. Well, thank you nonetheless. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the Super Chat donations.
Yes.
Because I've got $2,500 worth of infrared kit to buy, so...
Well, I was going to give you $1,000, but since I couldn't win the ornament.
Oh, what a wise guy. What a wise guy.
Why Must I Go says, I'm happy today. For the first time in almost a year, Forrest is now replying to my emails again.
Wow, congratulations. You'll have to share those with us sometime.
Yeah.
Let's see. Thanks for
Do
the
I think
shout out.
Sunday was John Oliver's last show? Well, he didn't say goodbye.
Hello from Chattanooga, Tennessee, from Belva Jenkins. You know what? That sounds like a name from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Thanks for the shout out.
Let's see. Glad you friends. Let's see. I don't see any more questions. Hey, Xarbin, how are you doing, sir? Didn't see you in the room earlier. My fault. AGK, thanks for the shout out. The support of the community has been amazing. Yeah, I think you're going to find that, Odious Soul. We've always found that this is a great supportive community. We're very happy with it, and we believe that the more YouTube channels covering the Fenn search there are, the better it is for everybody.
Beard Black says he has a gold sniffing dog.
Nice. I've heard they exist. Scrolling up. Let's see. I think that's it. Why Must I Go says, AGK, Matt sort of looks like Dr. House. Who's Dr. House?
From the show House.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's a compliment.
Oh, Hugh Laurie.
Hugh Laurie. Okay.
Yeah.
You look like a movie star.
All right.
You know
I'll
who
take
you
that.
look like the first time I started talking to you? You look like the guy that's in the new Enterprise Forrest Fenn commercial.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought so. Except he has a son. You have daughters. Daughters? Plural?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Congratulations. I'm a big fan of
Thank you.
daughters. Daughters are... Not that I don't love my son. Never mind. That's going to just get me in trouble. Okay, it just popped up on me again. Tell me where. Okay, dogs can smell. Okay. Why Must I Go correcting me to 29.97 or 59.94 frames per second in TSC?
Toby's like an engineer. He just rounds up.
Yeah, round up.
We're teasing Gus
Okay,
about that all weekend. Now that he's an actual engineer, he's pretty excited. If you guys haven't looked at it yet, oh, yeah, we're getting some answers.
Oh, okay. Let's see who goes first.
Mo and
Answer.
Curly is not correct.
No, Mo and Curly is not correct. Let's see. Happy Paul Ammon. I don't see it.
If you haven't seen it yet, make sure you visit my daughter's YouTube channel. Yankachik News Network, and she and her boyfriend just did a cute little video together, and they talk about, you know, their relationship and how they met. It's very cute. You guys should check that out.
So Jay and Debbie, that's 50% right. Mo and Curly is 100% wrong. Bob and Sally, wrong. Let's see, Art and Sue. Art, I think. Jay and Dorothy. Jody and Joe. Art and Judy. Where is Eric Schmidt when we need him? Jay and Carolyn owned it. That's correct. Why Must I Go? What, did you just do 3 wrong ones before you gave us the right one? Okay, Why Must I Go is the winner of our gift prize from Jason Eunice.
Yay.
Why Must I Go? Send me... There you go. Why Must I Go? Send me an email with your shipping address on it, and we'll send it out tomorrow. Congratulations. Who else got it? AGK, which video has the Zoom info? It's in the description box on this video below. I didn't say that right. It's in the description box below this video. So click on it. It explains it there.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about for our
tomorrow
night event. Okay, Jay and Dorothy. No, Dorothy is the owner of the Collected Works bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see you. Very interesting and different info today. Yeah, we had fun with it, Joey. You know, we like to do different things. And we'll do it again.
What has Matt found?
Matt, Jeep Girl Jody from Colorado wants to know, what have you found looking for stuff with your drone and your thermal imaging camera?
Well, what has been particularly fruitful in using this camera was in searching for mines or caves. It really does a great job for that, especially out here in Arizona. So like I mentioned before, I'm also a Dutch hunter. If anybody knows anything about the Lost Dutchman and the Superstition Mountains and so forth. So in doing that kind of work, the thermal camera, whether it's a handheld or via the drone, is absolutely fabulous for that. You can be right on top of a cave or a mine, and well, not on top of it, but be literally a few feet from it and not see it. When you run a thermal camera over it, it's because that cave temperature is relatively constant, and it gets, you know, hotter than can be imagined here in the Phoenix area. Yeah. So that blue signature coming out of the cave is pretty telltale. I've found also found a couple of good-sized meteor wrongs.
Oh, wow.
Not meteorites, but
meteor wrongs.
Right. So one of which Forrest commented on, and he says, "Nah, I think that's hematite," and he was right. Yeah. But I've used it to try to find those high iron content, iron nickel content meteorites, like that one.
Like the meteor men.
Yeah, meteor men. Yeah. There's one there on my.
Okay, so we have one last question before we get out of chat and go to the outro today. Illinois Ghost Rick asked, Matt, how many drones do you own and how do you carry them into the field?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So I have 3 large unique drones. Those are all hexacopters. I also have a DJI Flame Wheel, the F450, and then I have the Mavic Air, which is quickly becoming my favorite drone because of its portability. Yeah. It is so easy, even with several batteries and range extenders and everything else, you can take it out in the field. In fact, I just had it in Silverton at over 11,600 feet with some pretty significant winds blowing, and it did just fine.
How much flight time did you get at 11,600 feet?
Well, normally we get, I'd say, close to 20 minutes on a battery.
17 to 20 is what we get.
Yeah, it lasted about 4.5 minutes, and the light started flashing on me. Yeah. So
there isn't enough air up there to hold it up, you know.
Well, there wasn't enough air for me either.
Yeah.
But, it was quite the trek. We went up there to just look around and have a good time and see the see the source of a couple of rivers up there. But yeah, my brother-in-law and I went up there, and we had a great time. And he's going to be helping me produce, and he's got a film background. He's going to help me produce the myvicariousadventures.com
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, make sure you let us know when it's up there so that we can help you with the promo.
Perfect.
All right. All right. We're going to transition over. First of all, I wanted to say thank you very much to Matt for joining us today and for sharing not only the time, but this amount of information. It's very helpful for those of us who have an interest in the potential for technology in the search. And we're going to cover some other areas in the future as well. I like the idea of applying technology because I think that is going to help ultimately someone find the chest. Also, we'd like to thank all the folks that came into the chat today. We had 92 peak concurrent viewers, which is a good day for us, and we're glad that you can come. Our moderators, thank you again for joining us today and helping us to make this a safe place where people can come and hold a conversation without fear of being attacked in an ad hominem way. Okay, so Matt, thanks again. If you would turn off your microphone so we can close out. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure. But again, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a good time.
Thank you. All right.
Coming up the rest of this week, on tomorrow night, Wednesday, we have our fantastic fan night. If you still haven't had a chance to sign up for that, we do have a video that gives you all the details. And again, that link will be posted in the description box of this video. It's also posted in many of our other videos, and or you can just look through our videos on our YouTube channel to find that. And make sure you get signed up with your first and last name and your email address, and we will make sure that you're included in the chat tomorrow evening, where everybody's going to have 60 seconds to introduce themselves and give a little bit of an update on what they're doing in the chase and how great it's been for them.
And considering the number of people, I think as of this morning we had like 25 people registered. So if there are fewer people registered than the 100 that we can accommodate, we'll give everybody more time to talk about themselves and their search and whether or not they've invested in thermal imaging technology or drones.
Mm-hmm. And then again on Thursday, May 10th, we'll have our Forrest Fenn Memoirs book club. We'll be talking about Chapter 11, is it? The one, it's
Cafe
Totem Cafe Caper. Comes right after In Love with Yellowstone. That's all I remembered. And so we'll be here 1:00 p.m. and we'll be opening up that bottle of sake and enjoying that. That's from one of our subscribers. So
viewers and now friend, considering he came all the way from Tokyo to visit.
Yeah. And then again on Friday, May 11th, we'll have another episode of Just the Facts released at 1:00 p.m. And on Sunday, of course, we'll have our next week's lineup. And next week should be another full week of exciting entertainment.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking about next week is we have a plan to go out this weekend where we're going to do another scout rather than a recon. And we're going to shoot some footage. But I think we're going to take this out with us and collect some imagery with this camera and bring it back. And maybe next week's show will be a little bit about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Make sure you like with a thumbs up, boop, and a share with your social media contacts, and subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe and then click on the little bell to make sure you receive notifications whenever we go live or release a new video. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you and your comments and your super chat and your questions and just your very presence. And thank you so much for Gypsy Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.